I'm glad they didn't recognize me because in real life I don't look anything like Mrs. Gandhi. So the fact that they couldn't recognize me anywhere, it I think was well, a sign of a job well done. When I was offered the film to start off with, there was obviously disbelief because I didn't think Akshay was serious. I thought he was pranking me. And we saw the transformation. I honestly couldn't recognize myself anywhere looking into that mirror. I couldn't see any of Lara on my face. I'm not playing a biopic on Mrs. Gandhi. This film isn't about Mrs. Gandhi. In a course of event that happened through history. Faridoon, अगर मैं सच बोलूं तो I think one of my greatest gifts that God has given me is the gift of the gab. I don't know where it comes from. It's always been there in me. I could do this when I was 6 years old.
Lara, welcome back on Bollywood Hungama.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.
I think you're looking really, really remarkable. This red jacket is truly outstanding.
My red jacket in my reddish orange chair. I didn't realize how much was going on actually till I got dressed today.
All right, and no one has recognized you as Indira Gandhi in Bellbottom. So was that by design or what exactly was going in your mind?
I'm glad they didn't recognize me because in real life, I don't look anything like Mrs. Gandhi. So the fact that they couldn't recognize me anywhere, it I think was well, a sign of a job well done. So I'm extremely excited and very delighted by all the appreciation that's come my way for it.
What was your research like? In terms of when you're preparing for a character like Indira Gandhi?
So obviously when I was offered...
extremely diverse.
When I was offered the film to start off with, there was obviously disbelief because I didn't think Akshay was serious. I thought he was pranking me, and this was May 2020. Everybody was sitting at home. The entire industry had shut down. So I thought Akshay was at home, and knowing the workaholic that he is, I just felt that, he had time on his hands and he didn't know what to do with himself. So he had decided, I'm going to mess with Lara. But, obviously there's tremendous amount of excitement to be offered to play a character as iconic as Mrs. Gandhi, a female actor in the business. But I think that excitement very quickly also brought a lot of nervousness because there's a tremendous amount of responsibility to portray, a character as revered as her on screen. And there definitely was a lot of homework and preparation that went behind it, So Ranjit Tiwari, our director, and Vashuji, Akshay, myself, we all saw it as two ways of going about it. Either it was just Lara who was going to play a character that would resemble Mrs. Gandhi, so people would know that they would understand who she was playing on screen, but I would still look like myself. Or the other way was to make it to really actually make me look as closely as her as possible. And I think that's where Vikram Gaikwadji and his entire team came into the picture. He's a national award-winning makeup artist, won many national awards for his work. And he was very excited. He found it extremely challenging to transform me. So, of course, one part of it was the physicality of it, which was entirely Vikram's doing, creating the wig, creating the prosthetic pieces, the aging of the face, the pigmentation, all of that. Once we did the look test and we saw the transformation, I honestly couldn't recognize myself anywhere looking into that mirror. I couldn't see any of Lara on my face. And I think we were all amazed at how close the resemblance had gotten. And it was one of those very eerie, very kind of shocking, moments where there was some magic happened. So you knew that, okay, now we need to get serious about this. And it was up to me then to kind of create a performance that matched that transformation, so the performance had to back up what Vikram was able to do and the transformation that he had been able to create. So that took a lot of work. That took not just breaking down, watching endless hours of footage, archived footage of Mrs. Gandhi to understand her body language, the way she sat, the way she stood, the way she moved her eyes, the way she moved her hands, what her interactions with people were like, how she spoke to people. But it was also kind of understanding the socio-political environment that was existing at the time of this incident. I mean, it's based on inspired by a true life incident of a hijacking that took place in Mrs. Gandhi's tenure. So rather dramatic event. but Mrs. Gandhi was never a dramatic person. She would never have reacted to something. And that's a fine line, because at the end of the day, it's cinema, and you have a certain amount of cinematic liberty that you can take. But since you're portraying a real life character on screen, you can't go so far away from what they really were like. So it was keeping that very understated performance within a very dramatic event, getting into her mind space a little bit. This was in August of 1984. There was a lot going on in the country at that point of time. So what the environment was like also, that would have influenced the decisions she made, the steps that she took to deal with this particular incident. It was understanding that. My dad used to be Mrs. Gandhi's personal pilot for a couple of years, so he had interacted with her on a personal basis. So he, shared a lot of nuances that otherwise you would not be able to get from just watching footage of her. The way that she was, whether she was open to accepting assistance. So I still remember when I was a kid growing up with stories of Mrs. Gandhi around us, because, he would come home and narrate things that had happened through days, election rallies and things like that. So that, of course, was an invaluable source to tap into, to have my dad to be able to share that with me. And all of that kind of came together to create this character on screen.
Of course. And now, physicality is something that you've got you've got spot on. At the same time, I'm sure that the preparation must have been really, really arduous. But at the same time, as you're mentioning about the mind space, because you said that she was not someone who would react to any incident whatsoever. And many who've known her, many who have written about her, they used to say that it was very difficult to read her mind.
Yes.
And there was that element of that stoic element that she had, which was absolutely brilliant in more ways than one. And the entire journey from being called a Goongi Gudiya to being this Iron Lady, or someone who took very, very tough decisions. It is also said that she was the only man in her cabinet, which is, I think, a bit of a sexist sort of statement that was made at that point of time. But she was an extremely strong person. So getting into the head of someone like her, what was your thought process like?
Yeah, so I mean, like you said, Faridoon, that she was also somebody who couldn't suffer fools. She didn't want to waste time. She didn't like long-winded answers about something. She wanted very precise answers. She wanted people around her who knew what they were doing. तो I don't know जितने सारे लोगों ने इस पिक्चर को already theaters में देख चुके हैं, लेकिन जब आप इसे Amazon Prime पे अभी देखेंगे, तो you'll realize also that the incidences around her, she wanted people who had answers. And she held them accountable. And as you said, that, the decision that she made, the steps that she took in dealing with this particular incident, you couldn't read her mind. And that was very important, even from an audience's point of view. The audience, it should come as a surprise to the audience, the steps that she took. It should come as a surprise to the audience. Why did she choose to make this decision? I don't doubt a lot. I want people to go and see the film and enjoy it for what it is, but she did, like you said, she didn't toe the line of what was, her cabinet expected her to do. She was willing in a man's world to do things differently than the way the men expected her to do it. And, to understand all of that, I think when he wanted somebody who could bring a certain kind of a body language, a certain kind of a gravitas, a certain kind of mental space to play a character like this. And that's why he thought of me. In many ways, I've existed in an industry for 18 years that has primarily been male-driven.
Right.
And as a rank outsider without any so-called godfathers or anybody doing me any favors, I've kind of forged my own path and maybe danced to my own tune, which may have been different to what public sentiment wanted to see me do or play, or the way that they would want to have seen me positioned. But I just had the conviction to do that for myself. So these are small things that helped me add from my own space what I could to Mrs. Gandhi's character. But then, of course, a lot of it was also, as an artist, gleaming on somebody else's experience and creating the art of, acting to be able to bring that character alive on screen.
Right. You have this unique personality trait that you like speaking your mind. You believe in certain aspects, and you you tend to express yourself, which is wonderful. Now, when it comes to someone like Indira Gandhi, when I came to know that you are playing Indira Gandhi, for example, my first thought was that in many ways she's also this polarizing figure. There are people who literally revere her and have a lot of respect for her, but at the same time, there are people who have all sorts of negative things about her, be it emergency or a lot of other things as well. So when you are playing such a polarizing character, so while you were maybe performing those dialogues or scenes, did you have any apprehension कि पता नहीं कौन सा dialogue जो है वो किस context में out of context ले लिया जाए, and there may be some sort of controversy around it, because आजकल थोड़ा सा काफी आसान है ये सब चीजें होना.
Of course. No, but I think the most important thing, Faridoon, is to have perspective that at the end of the day, I am an actor. I am an artist. I am going to be offered a gamut of roles to play through my career. Some which will be based on real life personalities, some that are personalities that don't exist and are characters that you have to create. And I mean, in this film, you're dealing with a real incident. So it's something that's been documented. It's something that's been archived. It's a part of history. You're not rewriting history. You're not changing. You're not seeing what happened to give it a different kind of a perspective. So first and foremost, as an actor, it's very important for me to understand that I'm not playing a biopic on Mrs. Gandhi. This film isn't about Mrs. Gandhi. She is her character in a course of, in a course of event that happened through history. So it's keeping that perspective, understanding what you're playing, understanding the brief that is given to you of what you're supposed to transpire on screen, what is it that you're supposed to portray. And this is a very specific event. So I knew that it is limited to reacting as this personality in a given circumstance. If I was doing a biopic on Mrs. Gandhi, it would be a different story, because that would chronicle also a large part of her life and the events that played out through it. And I understand perfectly well, of course, she is somebody that, like you said, caused these very varied sentiments in people. And there are people
Right.
who've lived through that, period of time, who have come out of it. Some of them, looking at her as an icon and a role model, that you kind of live up to. And some people who were very against the decisions and the policies that she made and the outcomes that they had. So I know that while I'm portraying a character like this on screen, I can't keep everybody happy all the time. There will be people who will, kind of react to it positively, who will react to it negatively. And that's part and parcel of being an actor. But I think the important thing to understand is, at the end of the day, somebody else's ideologies or somebody else's life doesn't impact who you are and what your ideologies in life are. You just step into that to portray that on screen for an X amount of time, but I still have to come back to be Lara Dutta for the rest of my life.
All right, and if Lara Dutta could be like this, then I think everybody, no one will have any complaint whatsoever. All right, so now with so many accolades coming your way with this performance, what is your plan from here on? What is it that you want to do? There are so many possibilities on OTT right now. Would you want to do like a web show that really is maybe kick-ass or something else, or maybe movies?
It is. I mean, this year has been extremely busy, and I'm very, very blessed. It's been one of the busiest years in the last decade for me. So apart from Bellbottom, I've also finished 3 series that are going to be coming out soon. And I think a very exciting time for me, because I'm playing characters on screen that are, close to my age in real life. I'm portraying really fantastic, kick-ass, wonderful, sassy, women on screen that I'm very excited about. They're all very varied in content. So, you have one that's a dramedy, comedy and drama. I've got one coming out for another platform that has, that is very sort of new and contemporary and fun and, like you said, kick-ass. So there's a lot of exciting stuff on the anvil. I want to flex a little bit more of my acting muscles. I've always been somebody that's come into this industry never wanting to be a star, but primarily wanting to be an actor. Sadly enough, in the prime of your life, if you want to call, I think I'm in the prime of my life now. But people look at your 20s and 30s as still being in your prime. And at that point of time, there were such few opportunities, and the roles that were well written for women were so far and few between that there used to be a cat fight to get your hands on one of those opportunities or one of those films. But I think now the playing field is a lot more even, and talent and your ability really is actually what's coming out on or being given the opportunity to shine. So I'm really excited by the work that's coming my way. I said this on another interview just a few minutes ago, saying that I really want to dig my teeth into playing a negative character on screen, something that I haven't really ever done before. But when I say negative, I don't mean just menacing. I want to play a diabolical character on screen. I think I'll quite enjoy that tremendously.
All right, while I'm talking to you right now, the way you're answering your questions, the way it is flowing literally without any interruption whatsoever, it's absolute. It's as if that we have rehearsed this beforehand, and that you've rehearsed your answers, and then you're saying them. So, does this entire personality trait, does it come from your Miss India days? Was there any sort of training that you had done while for question and answers at that point of time? Has that been contributing, or you naturally
No.
Lara Dutta ऐसे ही है?
Faridoon, अगर मैं सच बोलूं तो I think one of my greatest gifts that God has given me is the gift of the gab. I don't know where it comes from. It's always
Right.
been there in me. I could do this when I was 6 years old, and I don't think there is any topic in the world that you ask me that I would not be able to solve. So yes, I would say it also comes from having a curious mind. I read, I watch, I'm tuned in. I love it. That's what drives me. So, I mean, I love knowing things. But the ability to speak, I don't know, maybe it's a background. Maybe it's the fact that my parents always treated us, even when we were kids, as adults. We always had very free flowing conversations around the house. There was nothing that was taboo or could not be discussed. So it gave us the confidence to be able to express ourselves. But it's a gift.
Speaking with a flow and having so much of clarity, I think that is truly remarkable. So, what would you like to read? What is it that you watch?
Oh, it doesn't matter. I mean, I could
Mm.
read an in-flight magazine, or I could read the Omerta. It doesn't matter. I mean, for me, it's just I have this voracious capacity to be able to read, and I just love reading. So if there's anything lying around, I'll pick it up and I'll start reading. Watching also shows that we have in the digital space, and what we're able to access is amazing. You're no longer subjected to just being limited to what was available on the television screen or what was available just on the theatrical screen. Today, I mean, digital content has made a treasure trove of all different genres of content available to you. So, and in the comfort of your own home. And like I said, as an actor, this has been one of the busiest times because everybody, in a way, unfortunately, has been kind of locked in, and this has been the only entertainment for people. So today we can't produce content fast enough at the pace at which it's being consumed, and makes it a very exciting time.
What was it that you saw last? Any show, any international show that you saw? And then
I actually on Amazon watched The Hunters that had Al Pacino in it. So that was the last show that I just watched. And the last film that I watched was also on Amazon, which was Shahryar, which I thought was really lovely.
All right, so we are promoting Amazon the big way.
Of course, why not?